Hello and welcome. My name is Eric Lanchus, and today we're going to be talking about an SEO checklist. So I put together a huge SEO checklist for you so that you could use this to basically optimize your website on Google. So if you have a website, and if you're listening to this, I sure hope you do, and you want to rank as well as possible, you want to make sure you're not missing any things on your website, or maybe your website's struggling and not ranking. This is a checklist for you. It's kind of like a complete A to Z guide. Let's dive right into it. So we're going to be talking about on-page checks, like what the stuff that you put on your website, like how that impacts your rankings. Want to make sure that everything's good there. We're also going to be talking about off-page checks. So that's usually things like backlinks, citations, all that stuff, trust signals. We're going to be talking about user experience, things that you should probably do for your visitor. Now, this tends to be kind of like a indirect signal, but it's very important if you want to rank on Google. And I'm going to go over some troubleshooting as well. What happens when your website just won't rank? These are the other checks. So there is a downloadable file that is probably in the description right now. However, I'm going to go over and break it down for you. So it's probably good that you listen to both. Get the list. Listen to this, go through. I'm going to run through it really quickly so you get a thorough understanding of what you need to do. All right. But before we dive into that, I'm going to be covering the pillars of a high-ranking website. So I'm going to explain what you really want to have on a high-ranking website, and it's going to include direct and indirect ranking factors, but that's not the only thing we're going to cover. I'm actually going to give you a bit more than what you need. I'm going to give you a few static elements that you typically want to have on a website, things that are good for your users and not just Google. So we're going to cover the Google stuff, but I'm going to give you a little extra because I want the best for you. And if I don't give you this, I feel like you're going to be missing out. So that's why I'm really putting together a complete checklist, a checklist that I would give someone if they wanted to make sure they had a high quality website that's going to do well on the web. So let's dive into it. Let's start with the on-page essentials. On-page essentials, we want to start by having original content. You don't want to copy your content from other websites. You want Google to discover your content, and whenever Google crawls your website, it says, "Oh, you were the first one to post this. We've never seen this type of content before." That's a good signal. Next, we want to have a minimum of 450 words. So if you have really thin pages, you have pages with like 80 words or around 100 words, those are typically not seen as very high quality pages on Google. Usually the ideal articles tend to be between 800 and 3,000 words. That's typically where most of the web stuff ranks. That's what we want to be aiming for. We want to have a picture or a video or some sort of multimedia content on that web page. Now, typically I recommend between 2 and 8. However, in terms of like minimums, I would say have a minimum of 1. If you really have just one big block of text, it doesn't seem to be doing as well these days on Google. You want to have text and also some sort of like media image. Next, we want to have a good title. Title is a ranking factor on Google. But the first thing we want to know about our titles is you want to make it describe whatever pages. The worst thing you could do is have a title that has nothing to do with what the page is. People land on a page, they don't find what they're looking for, they bounce back to Google. That is a bad signal. So you will use the space available inside the title. The worst thing you could do, the worst thing you could do is have a very, very, very small title such as home or just your name. Like a 2-word title just isn't good. You want to aim to have 4 or more words in your title. Encourage a click. And usually you're going to be including the keyword in the title as well, because that could also be another ranking factor. We're going to dive into that one a bit later. Next, headline. So headline, the main headline is usually considered or known as the H1 in SEO land. So both Google's and the readers search for the headline to understand what the article is about. So you want to keep it simple and straightforward. Usually you're going to have the headline right at the top. Here, there's a typo. It's headline. But basically, the biggest problem I see with people writing a headline is they try to be clever. They're like, ha ha ha, you'll never guess what this is. So whenever you're clever, you're being sarcastic or anything like that, just Google is a robot, doesn't get any cleverness, it doesn't get sarcasm, it doesn't get funny jokes. So just be straightforward. If you want Google and your users to know what you're talking about and to know what the page is about, you just have to be simple, and that'll serve you well. All right, so subheadlines. Subheadlines helps break up big blocks of content and provides additional relevance for Google and users. So subheadlines are usually known as the H2s and sometimes the H3s and the H4s. So you want to include related words within your subheadlines to basically tell people and Google what you're about, and also helps to break up big blocks of text that are really hard to read. Next, we want to have proper grammar. Now, that goes without saying for pretty much everything in life. However, you should know that Google's really lenient. If you make a few mistakes, Google doesn't care. It doesn't matter. Still send you traffic. It'll still rank you. However, if it is flooded with mistakes, you might start to run into problems. Also, poor grammar and spelling is really a trust signal that readers will notice. Like if I land on a medical website and it's spelled out wrong, I'm not trusting that website, and I'm just gonna go back to Google and search again, which then indirectly, that is gonna be a negative signal if your users all start to do that. Plus, you just won't make money if your site's like poorly written. So try to get good grammar. And yeah, that's kind of one of those that is not maybe a direct factor, but it's going to be more of an indirect factor. You should have this on your checklist if you're trying to build a good website. All right, moving on. We have high quality supplementary content. What do I mean by that? Well, usually when you're covering a topic, you're going to want to link to stuff and add more links so that people could go and learn more on the topic, expand on the topic. You don't want to have a dead end. So you want to make your page kind of a gateway. You don't want to make a doorway, but you want to make it a gateway. So they get a bunch of really good information, but then if they want to keep on moving forward, keep on learning about the topic, they could do so without having to go back to Google. So in most of these steps, we're trying to just prevent people from going back to Google from our website. So that is going to be one check you want to make sure you have links to relevant content within your article. Next, we're going to be talking about content optimization. So those were the basics. That's basically what you want to do just to get by. Every single website should be doing that. You probably, if you've been doing SEO for a while, you've probably been doing it already. So now let's go a bit more into content optimization. And you're going to see this stuff really isn't hard. Now, the title, you want to mention the keyword somewhere in the title. This is probably one of the strongest ranking factors, is having the keyword in the title tag. And what you want to do is you want to include power words as well. One of the best tricks for ranking well and doing well in Google and actually selling and pretty much succeeding in marketing is learning a bit of copywriting. So if ever you pick up a copywriting book or learn about copywriting, you're going to be able to craft better headlines. They will get a higher click-through rate, and it's just going to be easier for you to rank on Google because of that, and also attract more people and visitors and so forth. Now, one thing I do need to mention about the title is you don't want to just have your keyword. You want to have the keyword plus more stuff. We've tested this, and when you just include the keyword, like if your keyword is how to talk to girls and you just write how to talk to girls, that's it. It just doesn't do as well. You want to add extra stuff. So the best way to keyword in 2019, for instance, would be better than to just include the keyword. So you always want to add a bit extra on the title. For some reason, that just seems to do better on Google. All right. Moving on, we want to include the keyword somewhere in the H1. Now, same exact thing as a title, and in fact, a lot of times the headline, the H1, is going to be the same exact thing as the title. Now, if you're using WordPress, by default, it makes it exactly the same thing, so you don't have to worry about it. If you're not using WordPress or you're customizing it, that's fine. However, make sure you include the keyword in the H1. It still tends to be a very strong ranking factor. It's not absolutely necessary. There are websites ranking without it. However, 90% of the time, it just seems to be a thing that you want to do. All right, moving on. You want to include related words within the H2 tags. So related keywords are very important to ranking. They give Google a lot of context. They give your users a lot of context, and they make things interesting. So make sure to include a bunch of them inside your sub headlines. Now, what you don't want to do is just repeat the main keyword over and over and over in your subheadlines. That's just going to lead to over optimization. Instead here, what we're talking about is related keywords. So if I'm talking about dogs, I might talk about a canine or a Labrador, or I might talk about cats. All these things are somewhat related. They will paint a better picture. So those are related keywords. And instead of just don't repeat the same keyword over and over and over in the subheadlines. You're going to trigger over optimizations there. All right, moving on. Include the keyword and related keyword within the image file names and alt text. So we mentioned before, as the basics, you just want to have a picture. So that's going to be the basics. But if you want to tweak it and take it to the next level, name the picture something related to your keyword. So if, for instance, your keyword here, you have the ultimate dash keyword dash 2019.jpg. So the file name, Google is going to read the file name and say, oh, this picture must be about your keyword. Therefore, we're going to give them a little boost. Also, the alt text, do the same exact thing, put a related keyword or even the exact keyword in your alt text. That's going to give you an extra little boost. And for people that are viewing the web without images, then they're going to be able to know what that page is about. All right. Next, in terms of optimizations, is going to be your URL. So usually you could customize your URL slug here. That's in WordPress. That's kind of what they call it. And you want to have your keyword in the URL. So inside Traffic Research, we actually have guides for creating content as quickly as possible with as little effort as possible. Stuff that really ranks well on the web. So if ever you want a complete formula, that's going to be it. But these are going to be the main optimizations that you want to do. So the title, the subheadlines, the headlines, the images, and the keyword inside the URL. All right, so now we're done with the content optimization. Now let me just point you to how you could avoid a few penalties with content. So let's dive into the avoiding penalties. Because a lot of times people will go too far, or they're going to do a few things. They won't know why they're getting penalized. Here's a checklist to make sure that you're not running into issues with Google. So one, this is a big no-no that Google just doesn't like, is don't include large ads between the H1 headline and the body text. Google just doesn't like this. They've declared it. We've seen it in action. Sometimes it's just misleading. It's a misleading ad. So you have the headline here, and then people like to put a big AdSense block right here, and then the content starts way below. Google doesn't like that. Don't do that. So make sure there's a check mark. Make sure you're not doing that. Next thing you want to make sure that you're not doing is you don't want to, or you make sure that you're doing is you don't want to force your audience to scroll down to begin consuming your content. Sometimes there's pages that have so many ads, what they call above the fold, that when you land on a page, you're forced to scroll down just to start consuming the body of the text. You're to read the article or get the information you're looking for, you have to start scrolling down. You want to avoid that. You want to make sure that when your users land, when people open the page, they could immediately start consuming the content. Next, you want to avoid an excessive amount of thin pages. So remember at the basics, I was like, oh, you want to make sure you don't have pages with like 80 words. Well, if most of your website is thin pages, so like very small pages, I typically will consider it minus less than 450 words, although this is not a hard rule. Then that is going to be considered thin pages. You want to make sure that the ratio of thin pages to good pages is more in the favor of good pages. You want to make sure, that's going to be another thing you got to check on your website. This could lead to site-wide issues with your website where like nothing wants to rank. All right, moving on. You want to make sure to avoid excessive opt-in forms. A lot of people run into issues because they're just they're pushing a little too hard on the opt-ins. Now, opt-ins are great. I love having opt-ins, and I think pretty much every single person should have an opt-in on their site. However, one opt-in form is usually okay. Maybe you'll have two. Maybe you'll have like a pop-up with an opt-in, and you'll have an opt-in form. I get it. That could work. But if you are littering the page with opt-in forms, you have like 3 or 4 or 5 opt-in forms all over the place, it's a little too much. So you want to tone that back just a little. Next, you want to avoid duplicate content. So content copied from other websites. It's not like your homework. You can't copy that, Bobby. I don't know who Bobby is, by the way. And if you are listening to this and you're a Bobby, I apologize. But you don't want to copy other people's content. Google doesn't like it. It's not nice. You're not going to get credit for it. And if you do it too much, Google's just going to not rank your website properly. So moving on, you want to avoid internal duplicate content. Now, this is kind of like copying from yourself, but essentially what it is if you have one page, you just duplicate it and duplicate it and duplicate it, and you have like the same page over and over and over again. Google doesn't like this. Now, they won't necessarily outright penalize you, but it ends up using a lot of Google's crawl budget. And when they look at your page, at your website in from like a top-down view as a whole, if 90% of your content is just duplicate content, they're going to assign a lower quality score to your website. So the big idea is you want to have as many unique pages on your website. You want to avoid duplicate content, whether that duplicate content is coming from other people's website, where that's going to be the worst case scenario, or the second scenario where it's just coming from you, where you're just repeating the same content over and over. Avoid both of those. If you must have it, use rel canonical. All right. The next thing you want to avoid is avoid misleading ads that blend in with navigation. Now, this was a big thing a few years ago, but it continues to be an issue to this day. So avoid ads that look like they should be part of the main content. I don't know if you've ever been on websites where they have like a download button that also looks like the real download button, and it's kind of like an ad, and if you click in one place, it goes to one place, and you're like going to the wrong place. You're intentionally misleading people to get clicks. Google absolutely hates that. And if the automatic algorithm, like the algorithm doesn't catch it, then manual reviewers will eventually catch it. You want to avoid that. So if you have any misleading ads, then remove them from your website. So next, you want to avoid keyword stuffing, both in text and in the title. So keyword stuffing basically is the art of picking up a whole bunch of keywords, like learning about all these keywords you want to rank for, and then just stuffing them into a paragraph or a sentence over and over and over for the sake of ranking. So it would look like something like, oh, the keyword is this. And sometimes people would put like a keyword, comma, keyword, comma, keyword, comma, keyword, or like keyword dash keyword, caret dash keyword, and so forth. You want to avoid that. That used to work really well, actually. That used to be a tactic back in 2005, 2006 or so, like a way back. It used to be a tactic. Put a bunch of keywords on your page. You'll catch more keyword queries. But now Google's wisened up to it. They don't like you doing that. And if they catch you doing that, it's against Google's guidelines. Don't keyword stuff. If in doubt with keyword stuffing, just write naturally. Just write as if you were writing to a friend. Usually that will be the best. So we've done a whole bunch of on-page. I've shown you the on-page basics. We've gone over the on-page optimizations. We've gone over what to avoid in on-page so you don't get dinged and penalized. Now let's move on to backlinks. So we're going to talk a bit about good backlinks, but really the basics of what you want to do when you want to get backlinks. Here are some checks to make sure you're getting some good backlinks. One, you do want to get backlinks from topically related sites. So basically, if a website is talking about home improvement and you're a painting website, that is a good link to get. If the website is about casinos and you are selling health products, that's probably not a good match. You want to get links from related websites. That just helps you rank better on Google. Next, now you want to get links from topically related pages. So now before we're talking about related websites, now we are talking about related pages. So you want to get links from related pages. Ideally, you want to get both. You want to get a related page on a related website linking back to your website. Now, I know a whole bunch of like SEOs are going to start freaking out. You could rank with pages that are not related to your website. I know. These are going to be best practices. These are the ideal situations. This is what you want to aim to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't rank if you get a link from a different website. Don't worry about it. Okay, moving on. You want to get links from the main content. Now, once again, all link locations can pass juice. You could get links in the footer. You could get links in the comments. That'll help. You could get links in the sidebar. You could get even hidden links. Even though you're not supposed to do that, it could still help you rank. However, the ideal place where you're getting links from is going to be contextual links within articles. These are natural recommendations. These tend to work the best. And what you want to do is when you're getting this relevant link, you want the text surrounding the link to be related to your content and to your topic. So if, let's say, you're talking about dogs, your link will be the best dog food that I found is on this website for my canine or something. So the words around your link are going to be related to dogs. So you're gonna have canine, you're gonna have dog food, and all those that's just going to make your link even better, more relevant from Google, and then that just helps you rank better on Google. All right. So you want to get links from trusted, high authority websites. That goes without saying. Usually people will assign metrics. We used to have PageRank back in the day. Now Google doesn't tell us. They've even said they've kind of moved on to a modified version of it. Now a lot of people are using DA or DR or TF from Majestic, Moz, or Ahrefs. Everyone has their own metrics. However, you want to get the highest metrics usually possible. You want to get high authority, high trusted website links. So this is the amount of power that passes through to your site. You want to get links from pages with traffic. So the best links you could get are actually links from pages that are actively ranking on Google for that search term and actively receiving traffic. If Google has already said that this page is worthy of getting Google search traffic, you know it's a good page, and Google will reward those pages more than other pages that are buried and not even indexed or not getting any traffic whatsoever. Now, those could both pass juice. Well, once again, for the SEO police, those could both pass juice. However, it is better to get links from the ones with traffic. All right, moving on. You want to get links with related anchor text. Now, Google has gone out and stated multiple times, and this is a major ranking factor, that anchor text does help you rank. Now, what you want to do is you want to use related anchor text to whatever you're talking about. So if you are ranking and you want to rank for how to paint your home, you're going to want to have some sort of mention of paint or painting your home within your anchor text. Or you could even go related, and you could have a description. Here's my guide to rank to painting my home, and so forth. These will all be good. And once you have a bunch of anchor text, you could start going even further out. You don't want to get it too optimized. Sometimes it'll just be click here. Sometimes it'll be the name of your website. You want to get related anchor text without going overboard on the same one over and over and again. All right. So here's troubleshootings for backlinks. When what you could do if you're throwing backlinks at your website and you're just not ranking, or you just saw a sudden drop. Maybe you've done one of these. One of the biggest mistakes is repeating the same anchor text in multiple backlinks. So if you're trying to rank for how to paint your home, and then you just get it, you're like, oh, I'm gonna just build a bunch of links, and they all say paint your home, paint your home, paint your home, paint your home, and so forth. Google is going to see that as unnatural. They're going to say, what are the odds that 5-6 completely independent website would link to this one website with the exact same anchor text? Because the odds of that are incredibly low, Google is likely going to not respond or begin to respond at the beginning when it finds the first one. But once it finds that the number 6 or number 7, they'll say, oh, something fishy is happening here, and it's going to tank your rankings instead. Next, what you want to avoid is receiving backlinks from spammy domains. This one's a little harder to know, but if you are building a PBN, or you're building a whole private blog network, or you're receiving links from a private blog network, Google knows when there's a whole bunch of websites on one single IP, and all those websites are shady. So if you have 500 PBNs on one server and Google finds that IP, then getting a backlink from there can harm you. It's not a good thing. So you want to make sure you're not getting links from blacklisted IPs or bad neighborhoods. Next, you want to avoid receiving a high influx of backlinks in a short period of time. Now, there are exceptions to this. So I'm going to say usually this is a bad thing. And usually this is a sign of link manipulations. If your website has not received a single link in 4 months, and then all of a sudden there's like 25 links that appear in one single day, Google is going to notice and they're say, something fishy has happened here. Are you in the news? Like, what happened to your website? Like, did you get featured on anywhere, or did you build these backlinks yourself? So most of the time, it's going to assume that you built these backlinks yourself, and you could lead to penalties because you've built links too quickly. So you want to usually accumulate links in a very gradual and organic way. That tends to be the best way forward. So make sure you're not receiving links too quickly. Next, you want to avoid losing backlinks. Now, this goes without saying. If you've been trying to get links, you want to avoid losing backlinks. However, what sometimes people don't realize is their page is not doing as well, and it's because they've lost backlinks over time. Now, when you lose backlinks over time, Google has no choice to assume that you're losing links for some sort of reason. Maybe your content isn't as valuable anymore, so people decided to remove their link, or it's outdated, so they had to remove their link for that reason. So whatever the case is, you don't want to be losing links. So make sure when you're going through your website, if you're going using this checklist, that you're not losing links on any single page. And if you're using one of the tools like Ahrefs or Majestic and so forth, you're going to be able to see where it says linked drop. Usually they'll tell you which links you lost. So if you're looking at a page and you have a whole bunch of link dropped, this could be a reason why your page isn't performing as well. All right, moving on to user metrics. This is one of my favorite places. A lot of these are going to be indirect ranking factors, meaning that by themselves, they won't necessarily influence the rankings, but they will contribute to a good website that will send a good user experience, and the accumulation of that will then tell Google that they should reward your website by sending you more traffic. I will explain a bit more as we're getting into this. So what you want to do is you want to have a below industry average bounce rate. So the biggest sin you could make on Google is when you receive a user they land on your website and they're like, oh shit, I really don't want anything here. They close your website, they go back to Google and search again. What you want to do is you want to avoid that at all costs, because basically that tells Google that they sent you a user and that was a bad website to send the user to, because you just went back to Google to search again. So this ties into bounce rate, and you want to make sure that when your users land on your site, they aren't clicking off to search again. So you want to get you want to get below average industry bounce rate as a priority. The next thing you check, or next thing I like to check, is going to be the 0 to 1 second engagement time. This is essentially how many people spend less than 1 second on your website. So you want to aim to have this number as low as possible, and usually I'll say just be below average. Like make sure you're beating your competitors in this. You want to make sure that people are not spending less than 1 second on your website, because obviously that this is exactly like the bounce rate, where this just means that people landed on your website, they spent less than 1 second, then they left, right? So you want to avoid that, make that as low as possible. Next, you want to have an above average page views per visitor. So you want to make sure that when people land on your website, they start consuming more and more pages. It's like on YouTube, whenever people land on your video, if they go check out your other videos, that is a positive signal. If people land on your website and then they stay on your website for a long time, this is a positive signal to Google. So, and you're less likely to have them to return to search for again. Next, you want to make sure that your time on site is as long as possible. This, once again, there's debate on if Google could measure this exactly or not. However, if they stay on your site longer, they have less chances of going back to Google to search again, which is something you want to avoid. And last, but certainly not least, in fact, this might be, out of all the ranking factors, one of the strongest ones, is you want to have enticing titles to increase the click-through rate and improve your rankings directly. So what I mean by that is whenever you get a whole bunch of listings on Google, like you get the top 10 results whenever you search for a keyword, you want yours to be the most appealing so people click on it the most. So even though you're in position number 2 or in position number 3, people just keep on clicking your title because it is so appealing. So this ties into the copywriting and making a really good title. The more people click on your listings, the higher up you will go. The more Google will notice and say, hey, even though this is in position number 3, a whole bunch of people are clicking on this result. Therefore, it is probably better than the first 2 results. So this is a huge ranking factor. Make sure you get an above average click-through rate. All right, so moving on. User experience elements. These are typically things that are going to help you improve the user experience. These are things I recommend you have. Most of them are optional. It's not like you can't rank with these. But like I said, I want to give you more than what you just needed as the basics. I want to help you out, and I want to make you have a really good website. So one of the checks I recommend people have is a table of content. Table of contents help increase the click-through rate because they provide you with a bigger listing on Google. So whenever you get a table of content, Google will scan the table of content and usually include it in the search engine listings, which means you will just get more clicks. They convey value to users when they land on your page, which means your users are going to stay on your site longer, and they will help improve user metrics. So win-win-win. Everything is awesome about tables of content. If it's appropriate, definitely use it. Pagination. So if you have a really long article, lots of content, sometimes you want to break it up into pages. Kind of acts like a table of content. And if you do, use rel next and rel prev. This will help keep your users on your site longer. Pagination is probably one of the best hacks for keeping people on sites much longer than they otherwise would with one single page. Social media icons. Now, directly, I've tested this, and directly, they won't make you rank better. However, indirectly, they could help increase shares, which could actually give you links, could give you traffic. Google could notice, and it can help your website grow. So you definitely want to have social media icons on your website. It's just a good thing to have. So like I mentioned, some of these are not direct ranking factors, but they can be indirect ones. Moving on, we have comments. Having lots of comments and having, sometimes what I'll do is I'll seed comments on my website are a great way to increase interaction on your website. So to keep people there longer, to keep people going back to your website, which is a positive signal. They provide social proof. So if you're recommending something or selling something, they make people more likely to trust you and increase time on page. Just good stuff about comments and having comments on your website. Make sure you got them. Moving on, we want to have fresh content with a recent last modified date. So whenever you land on a website, You want to know, when was this written? Was this written 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Is it still relevant? People want the bleeding edge. Like, people don't want a cell phone from 5 months ago. They want the one that just came out yesterday. That's why I try to include a last modified date or last updated date or just a very fresh date. This tends to help with user retention, user experience. This is a good thing to have. All right, moving on, site navigation. We're almost done, guys. I told you it was a complete list. We want to make sure we have dynamic navigation on each category. So dynamic navigation is basically the opposite of a static navigation. Static navigation is no matter where you are on the links on the website, you get the same links. Dynamic means that depending on where you are on the site, you're going to get a whole different set of links. Amazon does this really well. If I'm looking for USB cables, they're going to provide me with a whole bunch of links to similar USB cables. If you are writing articles about health and you're talking about, let's say, acne or so, then you could get a whole bunch of related articles to acne whenever you land in that category. That is dynamic navigation. That helps you rank on Google, and also it helps your users find what they're looking for. Next, you want to have breadcrumb navigation. Breadcrumbs is basically kind of like a roadmap of like where you are on the website. Some websites do it better, some websites don't do it as well. But the cool thing is that Google will make your search engine listings bigger and nicer if you include breadcrumbs. So they will actually have the breadcrumbs listed in search engine search engine listings, which can increase click-through rates. So even though breadcrumbs by itself might not be a direct factor, it definitely can be an indirect one because it could get you more clicks. All right, moving on. Internal links within the content. So you want to have links to other pages within your content. This is kind of self-explanatory because whenever you have a user lands on one page, you want him to go visit your other stuff. So make sure you get internal links. The next thing you want to have is external links. You want to have relevant links to external content. So it's very unlikely that your website is the source for absolutely everything. Even Wikipedia, which is one of the world's biggest information sites, links always, like basically always links to other websites. They're always referring references, quotes, wherever they got the information from. You should do that too. Not only does Google absolutely love it, it can also help you rank, but your users will like it as well. And don't be scared. If you link to another website, explaining where you got the information from, people are not going to run off to that other website and then forget about you. Usually they will trust what you have to say more if you're a good reference and you help the users by finding the information they want. Okay, moving on, site-wide category navigations. This is typically going to be the categories. Whenever people are digging into your website and they're deep in your website, sometimes they want a way out. Maybe they want to go back to the top category. Maybe they want to see the homepage. You want to have some top category listed as navigation just to help your users find what they're looking for. But also, this helps Google flow that link juice. So link juice, which you get from links, flows through the categories and it flows through the articles. So if you want to have a website where all your content ranks, definitely use top navigation, like site-wide category navigation, and put your content inside of there. All right, finally, user sitemaps. So now you've heard of Google sitemaps, and those you should definitely have. You should definitely have a Google sitemap, but also there's sitemaps designed to help humans. Basically, it's like when you go to a shopping mall and you get a whole big map and you can get a listing of all the stores. This is kind of the same idea. We get a listing of all the articles, all the categories, absolutely everything. It helps users find themselves around. Sometimes when people are looking for something specific, they're gonna go and look at the user sitemap, and link juice could also flow through this. So it's good. All right, now general static elements. These will typically not help you rank, but they are part of a good website, and sometimes they're required depending on what kind of website you have. So let's go over them really quickly. 1, privacy policy. Pretty much every single website needs a privacy policy. It won't make you rank, but you need a privacy policy. Next, contact us. Contact us, super important. If a website does not have a contact us, I won't buy from them and I will not trust them. Usually you want to include an address and a phone number. We're going to get into more details a bit later on. And you want to have an About Us page. So About Us, super important. The reason you want to have About Us is not because you're going to rank, but people, whenever they're thinking about buying or making a transaction with you, they usually check out the About Us page. They want to know more about the person, about the website, about the company, what their values are, if they should trust them, if they should give them your money. About Us pages are amazing. Terms of service and terms of use. It won't make you rank, but it's almost a requirement for every single website. So you want to make sure you have one on your website. All right, e-commerce specific elements. Now, here are some elements that usually convey to Google that, hey, you have an e-commerce store. Things such as cart, shopping cart. Typically, if you have an e-commerce store, you're going to have this by default. But if you have a custom solution like I've developed in the past, you want to make sure you include the words cart and shopping cart. Learn that one the hard way. You want to make sure you also have the word called add to cart. So you want to make sure you have that if you have an e-commerce store. You want to make sure you have shipping information if you have an e-commerce store, because users really want this information. And it's been said that Google crawls and starts and learns this information as well. You also want to have a refund policy, which is very, very important for users if they want to buy from your store. So most people are looking for your shipping information and your refund policy. I always look for shipping information. I want to know how it's being shipped, where it's being shipped from, how long it's going to take. These are pages, like I said, not going to make you rank on Google, but they're good pages to have if you want to have a good website. All right, information website elements. This is if you have like kind of an affiliate website, you want to make sure you have a disclaimer. That's especially important if you have a health or financial or other sensitive sites. You want to make sure you have a disclosure. So if you're an affiliate and you're recommending products, in some countries, this is actually a legal requirement to say that, hey, we're recommending this product and we're getting paid to do so. So you have to have a disclosure. And of course, having a section or just listing your writers and authors is also very important. Most people want to know where the information is coming from. So list the authors. Finally, local site elements. Now, these are almost the requirements if you want to rank a local site, where you want to have a mailing address. Because if you don't have a mailing address on your local site, you're going to have a hard time building citations. So you're going to have a hard time ranking in, like, let's say, the local map pack. So have a mailing address. You want to have a phone number as well. And I really recommend, if you can, have an email. Now, I know some people won't want to have an email because they don't want to get spammed. I get that. So you could have a form as well. But make sure you at least have a phone number or a mailing address. And if you don't have any of these, then make sure you have an email at the very least. You can't just have a site that just has a form and that's it. You want to have some sort of way of finding out who's behind the site. This is going to be one of the best things for your website. All right, now we've gone over all the cool stuff and all the good stuff we want to have on a website. Finally, we're going to close off with some troubleshooting. So if you're in trouble and you're like trying to rank a website, it's just not ranking, you want to make sure you're not doing some of this stuff. So we want to make sure you have a validated W3 theme. So what basically this is, W3 is essentially a validator and it checks for errors in your code. So you can go to W3, just Google W3 validator. You're going to find the error checker and you can check your website. You can check your pages with this. Make sure there are no errors in your code. Obviously, you don't want to have errors in your code. You want to have natural page titles and you want to avoid using exclusively a keyword. I've covered this already, but I wanted to include it in the troubleshooting section as well. If you're just going through the checks in the troubleshooting, you want to make sure you don't just have a keyword and then that's it. You always want to have a keyword plus a modifier plus power words in your title. Next, you want to avoid writing multiple articles on the same keyword. So this isn't just having duplicate content. Essentially, it's having different content that's all covering the same topic. So let's say you're trying to write an article on how to train a dog. You'd have how to train a dog, how to train a puppy, how to the best ways to train a dog, dog training guide. These are all exactly on the same topic, right? You want to make one mega page out of that, and you don't want to just repeat the same, write the same article over and over and over again. This is what you want to do. And if you find that you've done this in the past, usually you're going to want to create a mega article and really keep the best and present that to the world. All right. Now you want to avoid broken code. Google's really good with learning and navigating broken code, but it can get too far. So once again, W3 validator you could run the code in there and make sure it's valid. So if you have a whole bunch of broken divs and things are exploding your website, that's typically a bad thing. Make sure your code's okay. All right. Next, you want to avoid broken 404 links. Now, 404 links are basically links that point to nowhere or pages that don't exist anymore. Once again, this will usually not make or break you, but if you have too many, you could start to run into issues. So tools such as Traffic Research's site quality plugin that we developed that we're giving out, or Screaming Fraudic SEO could help you locate broken links and uncover different issues. Go check that out. You want to avoid deprecated codes. Deprecated code is basically code that people have moved on from. They've replaced it It is no longer being supported. And although most search engines still support really ancient deprecated code, it's still a good idea to update to more code, because eventually one day it might be a really important thing where they stop supporting it entirely. Next, you want to avoid infinite loops. Most people won't run into this, but if you have a whole bunch of redirects and your redirects point into what we call an infinite loop, they could throw the Google crawler into a tailspin, and you get a significant issues on your website arising from that. So you want to make sure all your redirects work properly and they don't just throw the crawler into a loop. You want to make sure you have no overlapping text. A lot of custom-made websites miss the mark on this, where text just explodes out of the page. It overlaps with images, it goes out over tables and so forth. Make sure you do not have that. Google absolutely hates that. Users hate that as well. You want to make sure you don't have any images exploding out of divs. So it's the same thing, except instead of text, it's images. You want to make sure you don't have any excessively long page loads. So things, if your page takes like 8-10 seconds to load, that might be too long. It could hurt your rankings. Your users will typically bounce off, and Google absolutely hates it. You want to make sure you don't have too many server crashes. Now, once in a while, everyone needs a good server crash, but I'm just kidding. But if your website keeps on crashing over and over and over again, eventually Google's going to realize, and it's going to be like, well, this website just isn't as reliable, and it'll take some time for Google to give you all your rankings back. Now, I think eventually it always comes back as long as your site's been running up for a long time. But if it keeps on going down, Google's repeatedly stated that this could impact your search engine's listings. Now, you want to avoid broken Google sitemaps. Once again, this is all about the Googlebot. We want to take care of the Googlebot. It crawls our website. It is limited in resources. So you want to make sure you don't have too many broken links inside your Google sitemaps. These are going to be the major checks if ever you're running into problems with your website. Use this checklist and download it. So speaking of checklists, the download is available in the description down below. It's brought to you by Traffic Research. This is not only just SEO ranking factors, it's essentially a checklist to make a really good website that performs well on Google. There's more than what you need inside. It is some pretty good basic reminders for advanced SEOs. And if you're just starting out, this could be a perfect checklist to basically start off with. If you have any questions or you want more traffic, I encourage you to learn about Traffic Research. Traffic Research is where I help you achieve your traffic goals. If you're building a website, you want to get the secrets. You want to get the secret insider tricks of what's working right now from people profiting from Google traffic. Now, these are zero-day tactics that you won't find anywhere on YouTube or anywhere else, because people are making a lot of money exploiting these tactics and these techniques. So visit mytrafficresearch.com if you're interested. And otherwise, if you have any questions, comments, leave them down below. Subscribe to this channel for more complete trainings. My name's Eric Lantris, and I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.